and welcome to part 5 of your fostering questions answered. And this week we are going to be responding to some comments and questions that we've had. Generally, the comments that we get are really encouraging, they're really positive about people who do foster or have experienced fostering in some way or another. But we do get occasionally comments, sort of quite negative comments about the role fostering plays in the removal of children from their birth families. And we wanted to touch on this and really sort of give our view of the reality of the situation for many children. So I'm going to ask Elle a few questions today, and hopefully we'll just be able to share with you some of the realities. So Elle, in your view, what are the most ideal circumstances for children to grow up in? Where should children grow up?
Well, where we start is very much children should be with their families. They should be with the people that they know, that they love, who are familiar to them. And I suppose working in fostering, family for us means quite a lot. It doesn't mean people that you're always blood related to. It sometimes means that it's a step family, or it might be a family that's got lots of different aunties and uncles. But people who are known to the children, who are in the children's circumstances, although we work in fostering, we're at one end of a spectrum, and where all children start is with their own families, and we fundamentally believe that that's where they ought to be, and that's where we all start from. Fostering is something that comes into play when all else has failed. And you know, our belief in children being with the people who are their original families is borne out by the fact that we provide parent and child fostering placements. That's a really special skill, actually, for a family to be able to encourage a parent to be able to look after their child when maybe circumstances have meant that that's a challenge for them. And so I hope that helps to convince people that we're not about taking children away from loving families, actually very much the opposite.
So where children aren't having their needs met with the family that they're with at that time, what is the actual process? I mean, are children just removed by a social worker and immediately put into foster care?
Never. It's as I say, we're at the end of a really long continuum. And it starts whenever children are seen as perhaps having their needs not met within their birth family, and that might be for absolutely a whole host of different circumstances. It always starts with the social services looking at what support they can put in. What additional help does this family need? And that might just mean helping them to access what are called universal services. So is there help through school or nursery? Is there help through the health service? And we all know that actually our health services and our social services are under massive financial strain. And I'm not saying that there's always the help that's needed, but that's not through a want of trying. And that's my experience anyway. I know we work in an all too human system, and I'm sure there are individual cases that anybody could say to us where perhaps they've felt they haven't had the service they've needed. And I don't seek to defend that. I just trying to explain how we see it from our point of view and what we see as the pathway of the children who come to us and who are needing fostering, the pathway that they've taken. So what we see is that first point of contact is to see whether a family needs extra support, what that looks like. And we see children coming to us needing fostering families after years and years of intervention. So years of support, of looking at how the adults in their life might change, and one of our real worries is that children actually are coming in too late, and actually adults are being given 10 years plus to change, by which time a child has had their childhood and are coming to us with all kinds of trauma and deep complex needs that we then have to try and help them to heal. So what's very clear is that children are never taken away from their families as a result of one social worker's decision. It's always as a result of either the police coming in and putting in what's called a police protection order, or it is as a result of a court decision. So a judge who is a specific family judge has judged that that child is at risk of significant harm. That's what the Children Act says. So it's not one that social worker may make a report, and they would make a report. And that isn't the end either. There's a long court process that is gone through that finally might make a decision that a child remains in foster care. Lots and lots of evidence would have to be gathered and put in front of a court. And again, we know that sometimes courts don't get it right and appeals can be made. But in the vast majority of cases, and certainly the children we see, they absolutely needed protection and they needed that extra support that a foster family might give.
So how frequently would you say that children are actively supported by foster carers to be reunified with their families?
It's pretty much always the first thing that's asked is the plan for this child to return to their family? And when our families are assessed, we always ask, how are you going to work with children's birth families and how are you going to support their relationships with their families? If any of our fostering families said they couldn't do that, then they wouldn't be fostering for us, because it goes back to that fundamental belief of children needing to be with their families. So actually it's always asked, and actually it's revisited because people's circumstances change. If somebody's, got issues with drugs or alcohol, if they can actually go through a rehabilitation process, if they can turn their life around, actually there's often not a one-way street. They could rehabilitate themselves and actually have that child reunited with them. So we'd be very supportive of that. But our ultimate duty is to protect children, not adults, I have to say.
Yeah. So how, frequently we as foster carers and as a fostering agency see children who have been reunited with family members quite a few times, and those relationships have broken down time and again. What effect does that have on children, and how does foster care sort of support them in that?
It's massive. We know that actually foster care in general is a massively emotional issue because it involves separation and loss. And we see many of the children, it's not because their families don't love them. It's absolutely not because of that. And children love their families. Often whatever has happened to them, they love their families. So the impact of it not working for children is massive. And our foster families have to help children resolve that loss. But the impact of going back and back and back again whilst adults are given the opportunity to change and meet children's needs, and that not working, the damage that does to a child and their ability to sustain relationships is actually huge. And then we have to try and put them back together again.
Okay, thank you. I think that sort of covers what we wanted to look at today. Is there anything else you'd want to add?
I could go on, I could bore you for hours, but I won't. I would just leave it with saying that if you have any questions, as we say, it's a really tricky, it's an area that we know is really difficult. It's about loss and it's about separation. But loss of relationship in terms of parenting doesn't mean loss of a relationship in life. And that's something that we would always want children to remember and encourage children to keep those links with their families.
So any further topics, any different topics that you'd like us to cover, please get in touch on Facebook or email us at info@easternfosteringservices.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.